opinion, Putin's clear preference in the 2022 vote. CNN, I gotta be honest with you. I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another. JD Vance declared in February, shortly before Russian President Vladimir Putin launched his brutal war on the Ukrainian people. The GOP Senate candidate in Ohio later flipped flopped, saying that he wanted the Ukrainians to be successful. But as the Washington Post detailed on Sunday, Vance's original remark is causing Ukrainian Americans who were lifelong Republicans to support his Democratic opponent, Tim Ryan, in that too close to call Senate race. Vance's initial reaction was callous and inflammatory, but House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's recent comments were even more alarming. McCarthy said that if Republicans win the House in November, Ukraine can no longer expect that U.S. assistance would be a blank check. My guess is no one would be happier to hear McCarthy's words than Putin. The United States is the world leader in helping Ukraine, providing more than $18 billion since January 2021, far more than any other nation. These funds have given Ukrainians desperately needed humanitarian aid, along with a wide range of weapons, from artillery munitions to defensive systems. This military support for Ukraine, together with the leadership of the Biden administration in rallying Western assistance for this democratic nation, has been credited with allowing Ukrainians to limit Russia's invasion and has enabled successful counteroffensives that have recaptured the territory seized by Russia. This month, the Biden administration authorized an additional $725 million in security aid for Ukraine after Putin's forces launched the brutal of barrage, barrage of missiles against the Ukrainian civilian targets and power facilities that lead to massive blackouts across the nation. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Twitter last week after Russian missiles rained down on Ukrainian cities, another kind of Russian terrorist attacks targeting energy and critical infrastructure. Since October 10th, 30% of Ukraine's power stations has been destroyed, causing massive blackouts across the country. In fact, around the same time that Russia was destroying Ukrainian power plant, McCarthy was suggesting that the GOP-led Congress might no longer provide robust funding to help Ukraine fight back against Putin's illegal war, a position that Republican Rep. Liz Cheney called a dangerous move motivated by political self-interest. The notion that now Kevin McCarthy is going to make himself the leader of the pro-Putin wing of my party is just a stunning thing. It's dangerous, Cheney said on Sunday on NBC's Meet the Press. He knows better, but the fact that he's willing to go down the path of suggesting that America will no longer stand for freedom, I think, tells you he's willing to sacrifice everything for his own political gain. Meanwhile, the GOP Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who recently declared that if Republicans win the House in next month's elections, that she expects McCarthy to give me a lot of power and a lot of leeway, blamed Ukraine for the war shortly after Russia's attack, saying that Ukraine just kept poking the bear and poking the bear, which is Russia, and Russia invaded. Green, who joined the 56 other House Republicans in May to oppose aid to Ukraine, has linked U.S. aid to Kiev to the money laundering scheme, conservative Fox News stars, including Laura Ingraham and especially Tucker Carlson, have been laying the groundwork with members of the Republican base, readying them for the possibility of an end to U.S. assistance for Ukraine. Carson, who declared on his show in 2019 when there was a potential conflict between the neighboring countries that he was rooting for Russia, did his best in the months before Putin's attack to paint Ukraine in the negative light. For example, Carson falsely claimed Ukraine was not a democracy and called the Ukrainian leader Zelensky a puppet of the Biden administration. And just the last week, Ingraham derided former Vice President Pence for referring to the United States as the arsenal of democracy and suggested our massive military is too depleted to help other countries such as Ukraine. During that same episode, Graham welcomed GOP rep Jim Banks of Indiana, who echoed McCarthy's comment about aid for Ukraine, saying, "We can't put America first by giving blank check to those around the world to solve their problems." President Joe Biden rightly criticized McCarthy and other Republicans who want to reduce or end aid to Ukraine, remarking last week, "These guys don't get it. It's a lot bigger than Ukraine. It's Eastern Europe. It's NATO. It's real serious consequential outcomes." As Biden suggested, McCarthy and some of his fellow Republicans may or may not get it. But there's one person who fully gets it, Vladimir Putin. Few people will have a greater cause for celebration if the GOP wins back control of the House.